out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Harvey, and this is Tom Fennell. And the show is...
I got the right hand this time.
This show is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. Is that a coincidence?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. And what we do every day, what I do every day is I search the news for material on energy and climate change, and I put it up at a blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com. And on Thursdays, we share it with everybody else, going through the ones the pieces that are the ones that look the best. I'm having trouble talking today. Yeah.
You need a little coffee.
I need a little coffee. That's what it is. Absolutely. Anyway, we're going to start with news on July 23rd, which is a Thursday, and I'd better get into this before I trip up too much to get into it at all. All right, from Trade Arabia, we got this story. Given the availability of solar power at 4 cents per kilowatt hour, a price with which crude oil could only compete if it were offered below $7 a barrel. That's amazing. Not going to happen. The carbon bubble is expected to burst. Vermont Asset Management has warned. According to the company, this would have profound implications for the Middle East's oil-producing countries, global financing markets, and the world. And that is why Trade Arabia was carrying the story. What do you think of that, Tom?
Well, I took off. I got a takeaway from here. Is there are two mega trends.
Yeah.
That are. This is from the article.
Yes.
That are dampening the outlook for oil-producing companies and countries. And firstly.
You sound English.
Sound English. Watch out. Firstly, production continues to rise, but consumption is stagnating. In Europe, North America, and Japan, where half the global output is sold.
Actually, I think the consumption is declining.
Rather than stagnating.
Yeah,
you're probably closer to the truth.
It's worse than stagnating.
Demand from China has also peaked. The recent crash in crude crisis has not stimulated growth.
Right.
Which is not the way it's supposed to happen.
Well, I don't think the Arabians were interested in stimulating growth.
I think they want to get rid of it while they still can.
So,
secondly, renewable energy is getting considerably cheaper and is challenging fossil fuels.
And
Duh!
Yeah, right. And the 4 cents per kilowatt hour that they're talking about from solar is not as outrageous as it sounds when you consider that we've had less than 4 cents per kilowatt hour bid in the United States.
That's a realistic number.
Yeah. And that
certainly going to become more realistic in the near future.
And we should point out, by the way, that 4 cents in the United States, it was actually 3.89 cents, was subsidized by the federal government. So what it compares to is about 6.2 cents per kilowatt hour, which is still a low price for power coming from natural gas. So
the subsidies are supposed to expire this month, but my crystal ball says that Congress is going to extend them for at least another year.
That's basically.
But after that, they're going to have a hard time justifying it.
They will indeed. They will have a hard time justifying
Which
it.
is okay. That's basically what these subsidies
are
supposed to do.
That's what it's for.
Unlike the subsidies for oil.
Yeah. $7 a barrel is pretty stunning, though. Okay.
It ain't going to happen.
No. North American Wind Power gave us this article. Renewable energy resources accounted for nearly 70% of all electric generation placed into service in the United States during the first 6 months of the year. Now, this is new. This is new capacity.
This is all new stuff.
70% of new capacity. According to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's Energy Infrastructure Update, I said that right, wind alone accounted for nearly 2 gigawatts of new generating capacity, or 50.64% of all new capacity year to date. This is, as I said, from North American Wind Power.
Well,
And
I got up on a screen. The what would you call it? The play-by-play.
oh yeah, okay.
Wind's 2 gigawatts of the new generation. New stuff installed. Solar is 549 megawatts. 500. Why didn't you round it off to 550? Biomass is 128. There's a long ways to go there. Ways to go.
Yeah.
Geothermal steam, 45 megawatts. That will probably grow slowly, but it will be more developed.
I agree.
Hydropower, 21 megawatts. They only put on one new unit of hydropower last year. I don't even know where they did it.
Large unit. You know, the FERC only looks at units of a certain size or larger.
The big guys.
And that really makes their reporting on solar
Kind of skewed.
It is skewed because they're missing 40% of the installations.
Well, natural gas contributed 1,173 megawatts, and that's going to start peaking.
I'm not sure that it isn't peaking, or
It's
hasn't
peaking already.
Yeah, exactly.
And no new capacity for the year to date from oil or nuclear power, and just 3 megawatts from one coal unit put up somewhere.
That's
a pretty big plant.
Silly people.
Yeah.
Okay. 95.9 WATD FM tells us, this is kind of cool, Scituate is the first community in Massachusetts. There's Scituate.
Pretty little town.
It is, actually. I used to live just down the coast from there. First community in Massachusetts to generate 100% of its power for public buildings from green energy sources. The town installed a solar farm at the former landfill 2 years ago, and a wind turbine was erected 3 years ago on the Driftway. Vice Chair of the Scituate Board of Selectmen, John Dennehy, I can't pronounce it. Dennehy, that's right.
Gotta be Irish to say that one.
I suppose it's true. But you know, I am Irish at least one day a year.
Oh, okay.
Everybody is. That's one of the great things about the United States. My Vietnamese daughter-in-law is Irish one day a year. She was very pleased to find that out.
I used to get a kick out of walking down New York City, St. Patrick's Day, and see these black people with signs on, "Kiss me, I'm Irish."
Yeah. Anyway, he said each project had earned the town over $250,000 annually.
They're making a lot of money.
This is the one that we had talked about before, where the one wind installation was paying a lot of the town's bills, and it's just one turbine.
$250,000 bucks.
Yeah, it's just one turbine sitting on the edge of the water. So it's
somebody was really negotiating well, because they get 7 cents when it's running and 7 cents when it's not running.
Well, there you go.
By the way, that's for each rotation of the tower. 7 cents.
Really?
That's what this says.
Really? Well, I don't know what to make of that. Anyway, that finishes Thursday, July 23rd. We're on to Friday, July 24th.
When are you ready?
In June, Dutch District Court ordered the Netherlands to cut greenhouse gas emissions to 25% lower than 1990 levels. This is still tripping over my tongue. By 2020. This is several percentage points deeper than the 17% reduction the country had been envisioning. The same reasoning used by the Dutch judges for declaring tort law valid for dealing with climate change could be applied elsewhere. I got that from Clean Technica.
Interesting picture of an old windmill and some new windmills in Holland.
Yeah, that's a very funny picture.
It's
too wide.
It's kind of neat. And I'm trying to figure out what that structure is on the back of the old-fashioned windmill.
You mean those bars?
Yeah, I think it's used to turn the
that's what the guy who is running the windmill uses to turn the...
Does he go out there and push them?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is not exactly computerized. It's what you call traditional energy generation. Old as the hills, older than tulips. How do you like that? Or at least,
like that, yeah.
at least they were in before the tulipomania.
That was
And if you want to know something about how people think, read about the tulipomania.
Yeah, that was crazy.
My father gave me a book when I was a kid called Memoirs of Great Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds.
Sounds like a good book.
It's a great book. It was written by a guy named John McKay around 1840. And Bernard Baruch said it was one of the most influential books he ever read. Saved him millions of dollars.
How about that?
Yeah. Okie doke. Should we go on from there?
I think we
okay. Newsok.com. And I will tell you, Oklahoma is okay. Developers in Oklahoma and other windy states are ramping up construction on wind farms in the wake of a last-minute renewal of a key federal tax credit that took place at the end of 2014. The American Wind Energy Association said 13,600 megawatts of capacity was under construction across 101 projects in 24 states. Oklahoma is expected to add another 1,440 megawatts. That's a lot of power.
This is a nice picture of one of the
look at that.
developments in Oklahoma.
Yeah, there you go.
It's all farmland. They're not disturbing anything.
Yeah.
By the way, you remember when we measured the noise output?
Yes.
Do you remember what we were getting?
Well, it depended, of course, where we were, but when we were down in the parking lot,
Yeah.
we were getting something like 40
40 or 50 or
decibels.
something like that.
Yeah.
I was just on the overpass over I-91 yesterday.
Okay.
When a car came by, it went up to 70. When a truck came by, it went up to 80.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we were standing directly below the wind turbines,
Yeah.
there were people talking around us who were louder than
Louder
the wind
than
turbines.
the wind turbines,
Of course,
yeah.
they were. That was a loud discussion. It was not loud because there was any
It was
heat
an
on
argument.
it. No. There wasn't any heat on it. It was just that the individual talking happened to have a naturally loud voice. But his voice was louder than the wind turbines.
Yeah.
And we had that same experience of a car going by 100 yards away was as
Yeah,
loud as the
you
wind
could hear
turbines that were 400 yards away.
And,
But they were all
and the trucks on Route 9
Yeah.
with the Jake brakes were louder.
much.
So, you know,
but one car at 100 yards was louder than 10 turbines at 400 yards.
Yeah. And
So-
basically, it wasn't the muffler, it was the tires.
It was the tires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. That was Oklahoma, which is okay.
What do we got here?
Clean
That's what
Technica.
I just said. The market report comes as Congress contemplates renewing and extending the wind production tax credit until the end of 2016.
Right.
I think they're going to do it.
The sense that I have is that they're going to do it.
The Senate Finance Committee approved the bill Tuesday to extend that credit and dozens of other business incentives. I wonder what they were.
Well, one of the senators who was behind that was Senator Grassley, who is from Iowa.
Uh-huh.
And he's Republican. There's a lot of support for this from Republicans who are representing windy states.
Why am I not surprised? Why am I not surprised?
They've got a little internal conflict going on there. They want to represent the people who are paying for them to get into power, but they also have to represent the voters in their states. And
Well, moving from Oklahoma to New York.
okay, the earlier revenue-neutral New York State carbon tax proposal has now transformed into a combined tax credit and investment proposal, according to the Network for Sustainable Financial Markets. The proposal would allow for tax credits to low-income groups in addition to encouraging investments for reduced carbon emissions or climate change mitigation, and that comes from Clean Technica.
I never noticed that the Empire State Building leans.
Yes, indeed. It's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, except that it's the Leaning Tower of New York.
There's a sub-message here that I think we'll touch on a little bit later, but a lot of this particular proposal
Yeah.
is going to subsidize renewables for low-income people.
Yes, and that's
And this
something
is
they're
good.
pushing for. And
They'll be able
Yeah.
to afford something that's going to save them money on their electric bills.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's what they're doing in New York. Governor Cuomo is pretty active on all of this.
This one we were just talking about when we were off camera.
Yeah. Saturday, July 25th, Clean Technica also told us this. Up until mid last year, oil prices hovered at over $100 a barrel. But with its excessive production, Paired with falling demand, prices have declined by half and stayed low. The coal industry has also been struggling. Years of buildup in mining capacity have forced global coal prices to tumble, and there is little hope that the industry will be back firmly to its knees.
Back firmly to its knees.
Firmly to its knees.
That's getting to their knees is going to be an improvement.
That's right.
I didn't catch that. You're absolutely right.
This is an industry that's in trouble.
Despite the fall in global oil prices, production of oil hasn't been affected.
Yeah. Well, again,
for different reasons.
Yeah, for different reasons. Again, they've got to get rid of it while they can.
While they can.
You know, and this, by the way,
they are a change.
They are. This, by the way, is for anybody who doesn't already know and thinks that we're talking about something that's silly, is an idea that was given to us gratis by a guy who is quoted in one of the articles that we reported, who happened to have just retired from the Saudi oil ministry, and he said this is why they were pumping so much, was they wanted to get rid of that oil. So.
Oh, so you got an inside.
Well, we've talked about that.
Yeah. Well, I've always assumed that was going on, but
yep.
now you got it right from the horse's mouth.
Well, actually, almost from the horse's mouth.
From the guy had just mouth.
Yeah, the horse's cousin's mouth. That's right. Okay. The state of Massachusetts has a goal to produce 1,600 megawatts of solar power by the year 2020. To do this,
they're doing a lot now.
They are. To do this, the state Senate voted on Thursday. That was a week ago today, the day that we're filming this, but you know,
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. To raise the maximum amount of solar power permitted to be resold to customers to the main grid. By customers to the main grid. This is part of a far larger bill intended to fight against climate change called the Climate Change Preparedness Bill. What a name. Apex Tribune was the source of that information.
Whatever that means.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't have any real good takeaways from this one, so
okay,
moving
let's
right
go
along.
right along then.
You got any almonds, by the way?
I have.
I got some right up here.
Okay, from UC Davis, that is University of California, almonds, vilified during the current drought for being one of California's thirstier crops, have a surprisingly small carbon footprint compared to other nutrient-rich crops, according to a report from a team of researchers at the University of California, Davis. And UC Agriculture and Natural Resources. California grows about 80% of the world's commercial almonds. Let's go out and buy some nuts. And as we do, chant, "You are what you eat."
Well, they're using, for one thing, this says they're using the hulls and shells for biomass.
That's right. That's right.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Sure does. Yep, it sure does. And we'll get to something that uses hulls in just a moment. But before we do, we have to get to Sunday, July 26th.
More on coal.
More on coal from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And this is an opinion piece, the title of which is "Coal is Losing the War."
And in Pittsburgh, coal is very important.
Yeah. While coal industry supporters blame the EPA for its decline, coal's enemies also include the vast natural gas industry, rising renewable energy, decreased global demand, Wall Street, and deep-pocketed nonprofits that deem coal to be a public health threat. And they have recently notched a host of victories that show the war is becoming a rout. Wow, look at that mess. What do you got on that, Tom?
Just a quick sentence. It's hard to think of another basic industry of comparable size in which the future demand has dissipated so rapidly.
Buggy whips.
It wasn't that big.
No, I know it wasn't. But that's what the and it's not just the coal industry, it's the whole fossil fuel industry, including natural gas.
But coal, I think, at least in the United States, is most vulnerable.
Coal is in deep trouble, and it'll be followed by oil, which will be followed by natural gas, I believe.
I think you're right. I wouldn't bet against that.
Yeah.
As we've said here before, renewables makes a lot more sense because you're not paying for the fuel.
Yeah.
Duh.
Oh boy. Okay, should we go on? Okay, IMF.org, And IMF, by the way, is the International Monetary Fund. An IMF study says worldwide energy subsidies are much greater than previously known. The combined,
a lot of them are hidden.
They are. The combination of direct and indirect subsidies is projected at $5.3 trillion in 2015, or 6.5% of the global GDP. I will point out that that is about 170% or 180% or something like that of the federal budget. This is a lot of money.
It that way. It is. It's a
huge amount of money.
Trillions go in one eye and out the other.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
It's hard to contemplate.
It's hard to, yeah, exactly.
Thousands I can dig,
Yeah.
Hundreds I can really dig.
Any number up to 7 is easy. Above that, when you get to $1 trillion, it's just too much to think about. Most of this arises from countries setting energy taxes at low levels, fully reflecting damage to the environment associated. Now I'm saying something that doesn't make sense. What's happening here is that there's damage to the environment, there's damage to human health, there's damage to...
Which costs money.
And it all costs money. And who pays for it?
The taxpayers.
The people who get hurt and the taxpayers.
Yeah.
And who does it? It's mostly the coal industry, and then secondarily the oil industry, and the tertiary industry is natural gas. Anything that's putting carbon into
there, and it's really too small to really parse here on TV.
Yeah.
But look up the article. It's interesting.
Yep.
I was particularly interested in the energy subsidies per capita.
Yeah.
And the leader of the field here, almost all of the leaders in the field are on the Arabian Peninsula.
Yes.
And
that's kind
for
of...
political reasons, they keep the price of gasoline low in their countries.
Yep.
Now, I can remember, it was a long time ago, but when I was in Saudi Arabia, the price for gasoline was 17 halalas per liter.
Okay.
Which comes out to about 20 cents a gallon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no, everybody paid that. That was...
Yep.
And in Saudi Arabia, at that time, every Saudi was getting something like 10 grand a year stipend.
Oh, wow.
So it created a lot
and
of
they did a lot of
laziness.
crazy things with it,
The Saudis didn't work, They hired people like me to do the work.
Yeah. I have a friend who, just by the way, is Jewish American, but he has a bunch of close friends who are Arabs. Mm-hmm. And one of them decided that he was going to drive as fast as he could on a road at night. And he had an accident that hurt him very badly. He hit a camel at 200 miles an hour.
Ooh, that does happen. That does happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often in the United States, but when you've got gas that's that cheap, that's the kind of thing that can happen. Should we go on from there?
I think we'll move along.
All right, we've arrived at Monday, July 27th.
Oh, this is a neat one. This is a neat one.
Okay, this is Entrada Energy Systems. I'm not even sure how to pronounce that, even though it's German, and I can do a tolerable job of pronouncing
I would call
German.
it N-trade, but I don't think that's right.
Well, I'm sure that it might be N-trade. It might be.
It's a trade name.
It's a trade name. And anyway, they've got this thing called an E3 Microscale Biomass CHP plant.
It's up there on the screen.
Up there on the screen with a guy standing next to it. He's not part of it. It has passed 1,000 hours of operation, which is nearly 7 weeks, with almost no human interference. The plant produces 22 kilowatts of electrical energy and 55 of thermal. The plants can be connected in series. The unit fits in
sort of scalable.
Yeah. The unit fits in a standard shipping container and can be installed in less than a day. This is from your renewable energy
you could
focus.
fit a lot of them in a standard.
Well, what they're doing is they're selling these things completely rigged out in a turnkey system. And all you've got to do is bring it in, hook up the pipes, hook up the electric lines, and go.
Yeah.
And they're designed to run off grid. The shipping container that the thing comes in,
it can stay in it.
Yeah, it stays in it. But the shipping container I believe, has a solar cell which provides the startup power. to get the thing going.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then they have other backup power and systems like that. And I got in touch with the people who actually make this. This is not cheap. It's $100,000 to $120,000 US. They
Order
don't.
me one. Order me one. Yeah.
I was thinking of doing that, Tom. But, you know, I figure based on the numbers, this thing, and it's 85% efficient. It burns, and this is where we're getting back to nutshells.
It's producing heat and power.
Yeah, that's right. And it burns a combination of wood pellets, nutshells, and sunflower seeds.
Okay.
Okay, and the way that it burns them, let's put that thing back up on the screen. There you go. If you look in the lower right corner of that, you'll see that there's a motor which is kind of set at an angle, and there's an angled tube going up from that to the upper left. That is an auger.
It's like an auger, yeah. That's feeding.
That's right.
Feeding fuel.
It feeds fuel into that vertical container that is.
Which isn't very big.
It's not very big. That's the gasification system.
Okay.
And what happens is the fuel falls into that thing and it's heated up, and this makes a gas. So the ash stays, and you have to obviously clear out the ash from time to time. But the gas that comes off has to be clean enough that it'll run through an internal combustion machine without damaging it.
Yeah, I don't see any scrubbers there. So they must clean those pellets. They're controlling everything by the pellets.
Yeah, this is, well, I mean, there are things that you have to do in order to clean this up. And this is, you know, the old business of the thing that looks like it's an ash can on the back bumper of a car.
Oh, yeah.
And it's providing the fuel.
World War II.
Same thing. These things produce gas which is pretty clean. And if you've got a good system, the emissions coming from this are as clean as or cleaner than natural gas emissions. And the generator is on the back side of that. But, you know, that system...
The generator is just a small automobile type engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if there were particulates in this, it would wipe out the generator.
Oh yeah,
so you're not dealing with biomass producing a lot of bad emissions. What you're dealing with is something that's very, very clean. And these plants, as I said, they cost about $100,000 to $120,000, or they will when they're sold in the United States. But that plant would also supply perhaps 10 households with both heat and electricity.
I think their market is the small and medium-sized industrial enterprises.
You know, the funny thing is,
these things, they got their heat for their plant, they got the electricity for the plant.
Yeah.
And they're off the grid.
Yeah.
If they want to be.
The funny thing is, this is being marketed in the rest of the world as an off-the-grid turnkey system. They've sold about 200 of them in the last year in Kenya.
So you can build one of your factories on a mountaintop.
Exactly.
Move one of these things up and you're in.
You're in business. But in the United States, I'm looking at a thing like this and saying, you know, you could have two or three of these. Elliot, the apartments, for example. How many apartments out there in there?
About 60.
So maybe 6 of these things would provide
would run the whole place
of a building that size.
Heat and electricity.
Heat and electricity.
Yeah.
And
it's electric heat now, so.
Yeah.
But it would make more sense to put in thermal heat, put in baseboard heat, and use electricity for the lights.
Yes,
Just in our
absolutely,
case,
absolutely.
It would make more sense.
But a building that size, you know, you could, and the other thing too, of course, is that if you owned buildings that had 10 units or something like that were close together,
one of these
could power it. And you'd have a single plant that would cost $100,000 or $120,000 instead of 10 plants that cost $10,000 to $12,000 each.
Somebody like Jason Cooper might be very interested.
I would think so.
Like
I stopped actually. I actually stopped into his office and said, you know, this is something that you should look at.
Did you? Yeah. Well,
and I think that, you know,
he's probably aware of it already.
Oh,
he's right on top of things.
You know how he keeps on top of things?
He talks to you.
I didn't say that. Okay, should we go on? This is exciting, but this is fun.
Dance.
We have to deal with other things here. Okay, and that came, by the way, from Renewable Energy Focus. And if you want to see this at the blog, you go to geoharvey.wordpress.com. That was on Sunday the 26th, and of course there's a photograph of it there. So the article is the little synopsis of the article is directly above the photograph. Although Kodiak Island relied on hydropower for 80% of its electricity, it also burned 2.8 million gallons of diesel oil, costing $7 million a year. Kodiak Electric Association set a goal of producing 95% of the community's electric needs with renewable power by 2020. They actually arrived there a little ahead of time, and they are now 99.7% renewably powered.
I got a really nice picture here.
Yeah, green biz.
This is pretty well
That
done.
actually is Kodiak.
It is Kodiak.
Yeah.
That really is, yeah.
Yeah. They have sunsets at Kodiak. How amazing.
That's amazing, isn't it? All the way up there.
All the way up there.
Yeah,
The difference in a place like Kodiak is you could have a sunset that lasts all day.
well, I've seen pictures of Kodiak Island.
Yeah.
It looks big. And I found out it is the second largest island in America.
Yeah.
The largest one being Hawaii.
Yes.
And it's about 3 times the size of New York's Long Island, which is a big island.
That's big.
Yeah.
That is big.
And Kodiak Island is only one of an archipelago. But it's the biggest one.
Yes.
And they've been running hydropower, as you already mentioned, for a long time.
Right.
With diesel.
Yep.
And they don't have any oil in that part of Alaska.
Yes.
So they are saying, what are we going to do? What do we have? Well, we have wind.
Yeah, actually, Kodiak Island, it isn't part of the Aleutians, is it? Or
No,
is it?
not really. No,
Not actually part of them.
The Aleutians come like a big tail off of Alaska.
Yeah.
This is
A little east
a
of
little
them.
east of that.
Yeah. But the Aleutians are a good case because
Almost every one of them could have one windmill would take care of everything they need.
Yes, that's true. One of the problems they had during the Second World War, because the Japanese actually invaded the Aleutians, was...
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
Yeah. Attu and Kiska. They during the Second World War, they had problems with the Aleutians with military operations because it's one of the very few places in the world where you can have a combination of dense fog and high wind
At the same time,
lasting for weeks.
Oh boy, that sounds pretty dreary.
Well, you know, one of the things that I've read was that people who live in the Aleutians really prefer cold weather. and you know, between the fog and the mosquitoes, I can understand why.
Some of those Aleutians extend pretty far south, so the farther islands out are warm.
Well, they're also right at the edge of the Japan Current.
Yeah, so
And
that
which is
modulates
also
them.
the reason why Juneau is not as cold as a lot of people might think it is. Okay.
Moving right along.
Let's see, where is this from? I have to know. Okay,
The next one?
Schneider Electric, S&C Electric Company, and Encore, which does transmission and distribution, teamed up to put together a microgrid featuring 9 separate distributed generating sources with energy storage infrastructure. Encore says the project is the most advanced microgrid in North America and will provide insight into optimization strategies. This is from Clean
Here's
Technica.
a quick picture of a
They have
microgrid.
got everything you can imagine in this thing. Did
Let me
you?
scroll down a little
I
bit.
think they've got. My recollection is they said they had.
I've got it here.
Yeah.
Two separate photovoltaic arrays,
Right.
5 generators,
Yep.
a propane microturbine, and 2 energy storage systems.
Well-
Managed via, and this is the key, a microgrid and technology demonstration education center. This is what these guys are pushing.
Yeah.
Is their technology, their expertise,
Yeah. Well,
not
wasn't-
necessarily the hardware.
Yeah. Yes. Right. They're pushing expertise. They're
which
trying
is
to teach
putting
people.
all of these things
That's
together,
right.
balancing it all,
Yep.
and making it work.
And they're trying. It's kind of like they've got a smorgasbord of different kinds of things. What kinds of storage do they have here?
The article didn't say, I don't think.
Okay.
I don't think it said, because I don't have it here.
I think there was. I may have seen this in a different article, but it seems to me that one of the things they had was a centrifugal
That's a different article, because I,
yes,
I
okay.
noticed that too. I don't know what it is, but the possibilities depend upon where you are. It could be pump storage, could be
Yeah,
batteries.
it could be.
Could be centrifugal storage,
Yep. It could be compressed air.
compressed air.
Yep.
And we looked last week at saving hydrogen.
Yes.
New chemical process.
And if you save hydrogen, that means that you're stepping into a point where you can start making methane, which in turn means that you can make propane, which and you just
Well,
got to
you can make plastic. You can make
anything
anything
you
that's
want.
made out of oil now.
That's right. Yeah.
But the hydrogen itself burns so cleanly that nothing comes out of it but water.
Well, isn't that amazing?
Duh.
Yeah. Duh. Okay.
We are making progress.
We are.
Slowly, but surely.
Yes, we are indeed.
And it will revolutionize life, really.
I believe it's true. Okay. The Barry Montpelier Times Argus.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Developers of a plan by a Swanton, Vermont family for what could become Vermont's latest large-scale wind power project want to ask the state for approval before the end of the year in hopes that the construction can begin on what may be a 7-turbine, 20-megawatt installation before 2016. Swanton Wind Project would be on a ridge northeast of St. Albans. And what is the picture?
Well,
It's just
of
a
a
ridge top.
similar project, but I don't know which project it is.
Yeah.
It's a stock photograph.
Yeah.
But the project they're talking about is going to look very much like this
Yeah.
one.
When I see that, the thing that comes to mind is the picture that we had up last week of the mountaintop removal in Kentucky. And
What a difference.
oh, man. Oh, what a wreck that was.
Well, I just was brought up to date on that Tuesday at the Post-Soil Solution meeting.
Okay.
They showed this picture of mountaintop removal. I think it was called The Last Mountaintop.
Yeah.
And it was more about people than about mountaintop removal, because the people are saying, what are you doing to us?
Yes.
And they're trying to fight it. And
It's been going on since the
basically they have
1970s.
succeed,
Yeah.
but not through their efforts alone, but mostly because the need for coal is diminishing
Right.
worldwide.
Yeah, it's easy to shut down a coal operation if nobody's got any demand for it.
And the CEO of Massey Fuel, that was the bad guy in this
Yeah.
picture, he was making $20 million a year.
Oh. Well, I mean,
He's retired now.
yeah, he probably ran away. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know that he probably ran away. But if I were he, I would have run away.
Well, I heard him talk. He sounded like one of the rest of these guys. He was a West Virginia good old boy, but he was still.
There's no such thing as a West Virginia good old boy who's worth $20 million
That's
a year.
my point. Yeah, that's my point. So
Okay.
he may have come from them, but
Yes.
he rose above them.
Yeah,
if
and
you
Hetty
will.
Green came from Vermont.
Yeah, Hetty Green, right?
Yes,
right.
that's right. And
We'll talk about her sometime.
one of these days, Hetty Green was listed in one of the Guinness World Record books as the meanest person in history.
She came from Bellows Falls, didn't she?
She came from something like that. And one of the stories about her was that at a point where she was worth something like $30 million.
When $30 million was a lot of money.
Her son got some kind of infection in his leg, and she spent a couple of days taking him from one free clinic to another to get him treated.
Wow.
And they would find out that she was Hetty Green and say, I'm not going to treat your son for free.
Yeah.
And so she'd take him somewhere else.
Yeah.
And finally she took him to somebody who said, if you don't get that leg amputated, he's going to die.
Wow.
And so they amputated the leg, not for free.
Yeah.
And so
But he lived.
Hetty Green's son lost a leg because
Yeah,
she was too
because
cheap,
she was too cheap.
to
Wow.
take him to a doctor who would be charged.
Boy, there's
Charge
definitely
her
a
for it.
message in that one.
Boy, is there ever. Well, there are mean people in this world. Anyway, perhaps we should go ahead and go to
We got a
Norway.
nice picture coming up here.
Oh yeah,
Right up here.
This is from Climate News Network on Tuesday, July 28th. Norway is hoping to become the green battery of Europe by using its hydropower plants to provide instant extra electricity if production from wind and solar power resources in other countries fade. engineers believe they could use the existing network to instantly boost European supplies and avoid other countries having to switch on fossil fuel plants to make up shortfalls. Now let's have
Look at
that.
this. I'll put the
Put the
picture
picture back.
up.
That's a Norwegian
Yeah.
hydro
There we go.
dam. And, you know, one of the things that's interesting about this, looking at it, I don't think there's a tree in sight, is there?
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, this
No,
is basically
this is all
some
rock.
pretty barren territory. They have hundreds of hydro dams in Norway.
Which they've been building for, what, 50, 60 years?
Yeah.
These have been building steadily.
Yeah, they get almost all their power.
Virtually all their power comes
Yeah.
from these things.
And what they're talking about is supplying power from these things to the Europeans, other Europeans, and they're building huge transmission lines, submarine transmission lines. As you know, we talked about the one
We'll be talking about them.
from Norway to Yorkshire, and they're
and to Germany and to,
Yeah.
and to Denmark. I
Yep.
mean, these guys are all interconnecting.
they're connecting them, and when you consider what's going on there, it makes sense that they would be developing submarine cables and the technology for that really fast, because they're easy to put down in one sense, and that is they don't bother anybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I forgot my train of thought here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what they're doing? They've got all these hydro plants now,
Yeah.
and they're taking some of them and turning them into pump storage
Right.
that they weren't built for.
Yes.
But they're taking the water and pumping it back up.
Yes.
So it becomes a giant battery.
That's right.
Okay, and so they might even be buying power from Sweden to do this, or buying it from Denmark. You know, whoever's got the power,
Whoever has the power.
they're buying it. They're
They're
putting
going
it
to
up
be
here,
buying power from Germany and then selling it back to Germany.
selling it back.
And the deal there, of course, is that if you buy the power when it's easily available,
And cheap.
the wholesale price is low.
Absolutely.
And the wholesale price in Germany has gone down from time to time to negative 100 euros per megawatt hour.
Which means they pay you to use the power.
Yeah, 10 cents per kilowatt hour. They're paying you to use the power. So the Norwegians could get power from Germany, for which they're being paid to take, and then sell power back to Germany when the Germans need for money. So they're making money no matter which way this power is
There
going.
used to be a song about that called "My God, How the Money Rolls In."
Yeah.
But
We're
this
in the
is
money.
very smart. They've got the hydro
Yep.
there,
Yep.
and they're just building upon that capacity.
Right.
Somebody had their head on straight.
Well, anybody in Vermont or Massachusetts or New Hampshire or where anybody in the world who happens to be in the area, if you want to see a pumped storage plant, there's a nice one
Right down in Northfield.
right down in Northfield, between Northfield,
We gotta
Massachusetts.
get down there
and-
and take some pictures.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And
I'm down there every Wednesday.
huh?
I'm down there every Wednesday delivering the commons.
Wow. I should go down with you. We should check
Yeah.
out a camera and take it down.
Yeah, we could do that.
We could. Okay. Our next item comes from Clean Technica. FERC issued its monthly report for new U.S. generating capacity. We referred to this earlier. U.S. Clean Technica added careful estimate of new rooftop solar capacity, and here are the numbers. 44% of the new capacity, this is for the month of,
All of this is new stuff.
yeah, this is new stuff for June.
So what they're building now is pretty nearly all renewable.
Yeah, 44% came from wind power, 41.5% came from solar, 13% was biomass, and of all the new capacity put online in June, 2% was from natural gas. Overall, for the first half of 2015, renewable power accounted for 78.4% of new capacity, and that figure does include Clean Technica's estimate of the amount of rooftop solar that went in, which FERC does not include.
Because they're too small.
They're too
for them.
small.
They don't even count them.
Yeah. But there's
Well,
huge
quick
numbers of
takeaway
them.
here is the story gets a lot worse when you look at the total electrical generation capacity, the existing
Yes.
capacity. It's much, much smaller than the figures you just gave.
Yes.
But this is all the new stuff. This is where the money's going right now.
That's right.
This is where the investment is happening.
And one of the things that I found stunning in the figures, because I went into the FERC report and looked at the thing, is the speed at which coal is losing capacity.
It is.
Our coal capacity in the United States right now is only about 80% of what it was a year ago.
80%.
80%.
Okay, yeah.
The coal plants have
If you look over the last 10 years, it's dropping rapidly.
They have dropped. I forget what the starting year was, but I think it might have been 5 years ago. They dropped from 500 and I think it was 525 plants to 300 plants, where they've lost 40% of their capacity in just the last few years, and that is a process that is continuing.
Not just here, too. It's happening in Australia, as we will touch base on.
We will touch base on Australia. This is fun. Okay, are we ready to move on?
We're ready to move on.
Omaha World Herald. Warren.
You can't mention Omaha without thinking of Warren Buffett.
I look at Warren Buffett's name and I'm about to say Warren Buffet. Warren Buffett joined leaders of a dozen major U.S. businesses at the White House in calling for robust action on global warming. Why would they do that when it's not happening? Berkshire Hathaway, Apple, Walmart, General Motors, Cargill, Bank of America, and others announced over $140 billion in investment in low-carbon projects and other actions as they shift toward greater reliance on renewable energy. This, again, from the Omaha World Herald.
Well, this guy's aware. He's investing in this stuff because he sees money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he might have a great outlook, but he's doing this for money.
It's a great opportunity, and there are opportunities. One of the things that I think is an opportunity is that little machine that we were just looking at a few minutes ago.
Oh, it is. Oh, yeah.
And
it's only one of several approaches.
Yeah.
Similarly.
There's no distributor for that in the United States. Does that strike you as a possible place to make some money?
I would think.
Yeah.
If I had a few extra shekels, I'd apply.
As I think about it, I would too.
Oh,
okay.
boy.
Again, we're talking about about Omaha, or we're not Omaha. We've moved here to the Des Moines Register.
The next one up.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to say Donald Trump isn't doing this.
Yeah, Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Did you see that thing that he had about calling a woman who was nursing? She needed to use a breast pump because
I haven't heard this one.
She wanted to use a breast pump in the middle of a deposition. She was an attorney, but she'd got to a point where she needed to use a breast pump. So she wanted either to use it right there or to leave for a few minutes to use it if people objected. And Donald Trump apparently yelled at her, "You're disgusting," a couple of times and ran out of the room. And, I think the first reports for that came from the New York Times.
When we do an article on Donald Trump, I got a wonderful picture of him without his hairdo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that a hairdo?
It's a hairdo. He takes the hair in the back and he brushes it forward.
And here I thought that was...
That's not a wig.
Who was it who said that was the gopher from Caddyshack? Somebody said that.
Corrected.
One of our comedians in the United States. Okay.
Well, this is still about Warren Buffett in a way.
Yeah, it is. It's still Mid-American, which is owned by Berkshire Hathaway. Bill Fairman, CEO of Mid-American Energy, said Monday the company would get up to 57% of its energy from wind in the latest renewable energy project.
Nice picture of it up there.
Yeah. Wind's growing presence in Mid-American's portfolio is encouraging, and so is news that the utility is looking to invest in Iowa solar projects. Both community solar and the utility-sized solar is being considered. So again, we're at Mid-American, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company, and they have been investing more and more and more in renewable power. And
he owns the railroad too.
Huh?
He owns the railroad too.
Well, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that moves the coal.
That moves the coal. Well, the truth is, Warren Buffett's got his fingers in many pies.
Yeah, he does.
and they include some that are not terribly clean by green standards. Are we, did you have something to say about this one?
I don't have much of a takeaway from this one, so
It's a nice picture.
move along to the next one.
Okay, we're up to Wednesday, July 29th. ABB has commissioned and handed over to the DO1WIN1. Do one,
DOL.
win one? DOL.
Darwin 1.
Darwin 1. Okay, thank you so much.
I did a little research on this.
Okay, let me finish this.
Go ahead.
Offshore wind grid connection to the Dutch-German transmission system operator Tenant. The 800 megawatt link connects offshore wind farms around 75 kilometers off the German coast with the country's transmission grid. The Darwin 1 grid connection can integrate enough power to supply around 1 million households. I find that hard to believe. Really, 800 megawatts, 1 million households? Is that right?
No, that's wrong.
I thought
Yeah,
so.
it should be 800 gigawatts.
It doesn't make sense to me.
No,
this has got to be 800. The number is not correct. But look at that.
Well, that's a substation.
Yeah.
Well, it's not floating. It's sitting on a.
It's the same thing that we've got up on Putney Road.
Yeah, basically it is. Plus, it's got a converter to go AC to DC.
Oh, okay.
They're pumping it out of there on DC cables.
Okay.
High voltage DC.
Yeah.
Now, I was wondering, who's this ABB company?
Yes.
You know, I had never heard of ABB, and I was
Yep.
in the business. Well, it turns out, and I'll pull this down a little bit, ABB was a result of the merger of ASEA, and they give the Swedish name for it,
Yes.
which was a Swedish GE,
Okay.
and Brown Boveri, which is like the Swiss GE,
Yes.
to form a European GE. This is a big company.
It's a big company.
And ASEA was one of the big competitors to my company that made submarine cables.
Okay.
Okay, and Brown Boveri made transformers.
There you go.
And they make a lot of other things as well, just like General Electric does, you know. And this is one big company, and they're carving out a niche for themselves. And
I guess
they've
they
got
are.
the cables, they got the transformers, they got a lot of this stuff in between, and it's a good marriage.
Yeah. Okay. The New Daily tells us.
I just want to see if there's any other
Okay.
takeaways.
Go ahead. Nothing else?
Well, the offshore converter station, which we just saw, the alternating current from the wind farms is converted into direct current before being transmitted at a voltage of plus or minus 320 kilovolts CC. So there's two cables, one of them's plus 320, the other one's minus 320.
Okay. It sounds like they balance it out.
No, they add them together.
They had them
So
together.
you wind up with 640.
Oh, I thought they were just going to have the world's biggest short circuit.
100 miles in this particular case of high voltage DC submarine.
Okay. And now we're back to the New Daily, I hope.
Yeah, we can
A
move
surprise backer of a 50% renewable energy target of the Labour Party's weekend conference
Oh, this is
was
interesting.
Australia's
This is really
largest
interesting.
coal mining and energy union. The president of the Construction, Forestry, Mining and Energy Union supports Labour's energy policy on the condition that a Labour government would provide assistance for thousands of workers who might lose their jobs. Now, this is something that I think is really interesting.
Oh, it is.
This has got to be a real kick in the teeth for Tony Abbott.
Oh, it is.
If for anybody who doesn't know,
Give us
Australia.
a rundown on what's going on.
Yeah,
in
Australia used to have some of the most progressive support for renewable energy in the world. Tony Abbott, who is the head of the Labour Party, I'm sorry, not the Labour Party, the Liberal Party,
Liberal Party, which isn't liberal.
which, well, their idea of a Liberal Party is kind of like right-wing Republican Tea Party.
Yeah.
And liberal, what they mean is libertarian, basically.
Yeah, basically, yes.
And they tried to dismantle all the support for renewable energy.
And by the way, coal in particular, but fossil fuels have a lot of influence in the Australian government.
They do. as evidenced by the fact that the support that they were trying to take away and succeeded in taking away from renewables, they tried to redirect to support coal. They wanted to make sure that they could get that coal out of the ground and have it sold, which is going to take a long, long time.
Ain't going to happen.
No.
It's called stranded assets.
Stranded assets.
Well,
And
they don't mention it here in this article, but rooftop solar, done by individuals in Australia, is big.
it's big. It's
I mean,
something
people
like
are just doing this on their own.
yeah,
you know,
it's something
and
like 15% of the electric
it's
supply
big.
is
Yeah, much
rooftop
bigger than it
solar.
is the United States.
So the coal industry's in trouble, and the people who are in the union here are basically saying, we've got to switch. And wasn't there a quote from somebody in this?
We've got to face the reality in domestic coal-fired power.
Right, and this is from the head of the union.
Of the union, yes. Hey, these guys, according to this article, they're making pretty good money. They're averaging 100 grand.
The coal miners.
Yeah.
Wow. Of course,
And they
that's,
want to keep it.
that's Australian grand, not U.S. grand.
Well, okay, so it's 90 grand American,
Yeah,
something
probably.
like that?
Something like that.
They're making good money.
Would you go in a hole in the ground every day for $90,000 a year?
I wouldn't, but
I would not
there's
want
a hell of a temptation.
Yeah, there is. I would not want to work in a coal mine. But the guys in the union are supporting Tony Abbott's. Tony Abbott was giving support to coal, and the coal mining union is giving its support to the people who oppose him. And that must be a real kick in the teeth for him.
Well, it's a large union.
It's a very powerful union. But the other thing is the mining industry is very dependent in many places on renewable power in Australia. Because
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're going to run a silver mine out in the middle of the
nowhere,
desert, you
don't want to run lines.
You don't want to run lines. And so you can set up solar power and just go. And there they are.
Well,
so
this is the reality we are facing, is a takeaway from this.
Yes.
They're looking at it, they're saying, we better do something or we're not going to have any jobs at all.
That's right. Because the Chinese are going to stop buying coal from them, and the Indians are going to stop buying coal from them. And basically, the people in a lot of people in Africa are starting to see the light, you know, that coal is not going to provide them with cheaper power. And in fact, Oxfam just today put out a report which was basically saying to the Australian government, you are not going to be able to provide coal or electricity from coal in Africa at a price that's competitive with renewable power. So get real. And, you know, that's where it was. Have we got more to say about that
I'm
one?
trying to come up with a takeaway
Okay,
here.
let's move on. We don't have much time left. So our last item also yesterday, Wednesday, July 29th, Germany's transition from coal-fired and oil-fired power to carbon-free electricity hit a new milestone on July 25th when solar, wind, and other sources of renewable energy met 78% of the day's energy demand for the country. Imagine that.
3/4 of what they're using.
And they used to say that if it got to 5%, the grid would melt down. You know, I mean, they have so many self-serving things that they say.
This is interesting because it's not a routine thing. They happen to have hit an unusual weather pattern.
Oh, well, that's what sets records.
Okay, heavy winds where most of the nation's wind turbines are located.
Right.
So they got lucky. As the turbines generated more power, the utilities ramped down coal and gas-fired power plants.
Right.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely, it does.
Take it while you can.
That's right. Why burn coal and pay for it when you can get the electricity cheap? And the fact of the matter is, when those wind turbines are turning, if you're going to keep going making those coal plants put out electricity, you're going to have to sell that electricity for less than nothing. And literally less than nothing. You're going to have to pay people to take it. So
well, I think as
ramp
far
it down.
as power is concerned, coal is dead. I mean, it's just going to take a few years, but it's dead.
Yep.
It hasn't toppled yet.
Yep.
But it's on its last
It's
breath.
on its, yes.
But they're still going to be using coal for other purposes, like making steel.
Right. That's true. Listen, we are at the end of our broadcast, so I think we should say goodbye.
Are we there already?
We are. We've only got a minute
blank
left.
page right here, so
Yes.
we're there.
Okay.
So let's get me back in picture.
Oh,
here,
a good idea, Tom.
so people know I'm here, and I'll remember to lift the right
This
hand.
is Tom Fennell. Remember that.
Hello, guys.
See you next time, everybody. Have a nice week.
Have a nice week.
And makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stand.